As perhaps the biggest and most successful film franchise of the century, and maybe all time, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has become renowned for its recognizable and widely influential characters, especially its heroes. From Captain America and Iron Man to Thor and Hulk, the heroes of the MCU have taken center stage as the guiding force in nearly all of their films, and while this system may have unintentionally set a precedent for generally weak and forgettable villains, it has also helped establish and develop some of the most interesting and iconic heroes in film history. So today, I want to describe and explain how Marvel's ever-growing collection of movies have shown what it truly means to be a hero and why they are so important. So, without further ado, let's get started.
You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
We are in very serious trouble.
Look, Jeffrey Dahmer was eating the shit out of niggas' heads.
He's the one.
You know, you may not be a threat, but you better stop pretending to be a hero.
A hero? Like you? You're a laboratory experiment, Rogers. Everything special about you came out of a bottle.
For as long as I can remember, I have loved superheroes. From the dark and brooding like the Punisher and Batman, to the comedic and witty like Spider-Man and Deadpool, and even to the otherworldly and powerful like Hulk and Thor, superheroes, with their extraordinary stories, have always been intriguing to me, even before their recent meteoric rise in popularity with the MCU, but I only just recently started thinking about why they're so interesting. What I came up with though is that in addition to the seemingly endless other reasons that evoke feelings of both amazement and reflection, one important commonality across many heroes is pain. The idea that heroes have to overcome something within themselves before they can help others. This pain, however, doesn't always come from some sort of physical trauma. In fact, it usually doesn't. Instead, these heroes experience a type of inciting incident, something so devastating that it forces them to reconsider their previously held beliefs or even their own personalities and actions and acknowledge that whatever they had been doing is either wrong or not enough. Upon this inciting incident, they feel a relentless need to do more, to become something they had previously thought impossible, and to take justice, however they see it, into their own hands. In the MCU, Iron Man most clearly exemplifies this. After bluntly realizing the profoundly detrimental effect his technology had on the more volatile parts of the world, he can no longer sit idly by as the weapons he created and perpetuated destroyed the lives of innocent people. Overcome by his own guilt for letting something he saw as reprehensible happen, he takes matters into his own hands and commits his life to fighting what he views as wrong and unjust, totally re-examining everything he had done previously and drastically changing how he lives every day rather than simply making one temporary change. Iron Man shows that when people feel responsible for something, especially something that they themselves personally contributed to, they should try to correct it through more than just words, but actions as well. He also shows that people who aspire to become heroes should first look at their own lives and work on correcting any problems or hypocrisy there before dedicating themselves to helping others, even if those problems are not as tangible as their actions themselves, but are instead more conceptual like their emotions or personalities. However, Iron Man has never been perfect. While it may seem contradictory, he also illustrates how heroes don't always act impersonally and altruistically. Sometimes they can seem selfish, driven almost solely by their own emotions and motivated by how others view them rather than helping people only because it's the right thing to do.
I've seen the footage. The only thing you really fight for is yourself. You're not the guy to make the sacrifice play, to lay down on a wire and let the other guy crawl over you.
I think I would just cut the wire.
Although Tony felt personally responsible for those killed by his weaponry and dedicated his life towards fixing the problems he believed he created, he did so, at least partially, because it hurt his reputation, not only in how others viewed him, but also in the way he viewed himself. Throughout Iron Man, Tony wants to correct his previous wrongdoings and does so because coming face to face with the horrors of his own work made him realize that people in other parts of the world saw him as evil and destructive, so he could no longer do what he had been doing. Although he did and still does of course continue to help people simply because it's the unambiguously moral choice, he also had various other layered motivations. Tony is still human after all. But what made him a hero wasn't his ability to completely remove his flaws. It was his ability to acknowledge his problems and work towards solving them despite those flaws.
I just finally know what I have to do. And I know in my heart that it's right.
While many people may think of the Marvel Cinematic Universe as nothing more than mindless entertainment, lacking any significant depth or thematic importance for society, I believe it offers far more than a first impression may suggest. Its heroes specifically have a complexity that grows throughout each successive appearance, defining them as dynamic and capable of change, whether it be minor or extreme, and showing that heroes aren't stagnant and immovable. They can learn from their own mistakes and pain and from the world around them to make changes and improve what they see as wrong.
But didn't life start right here on this continent? So ain't all people your people?
I am not king of all people. I am king of Wakanda.
Although many Marvel heroes arise from some unlikely and usually impossible accidents, they also show that anyone can be a hero, but most people aren't born that way. They typically don't have some unavoidable destiny to save the world from the moment they take their first steps. They have to grow into a hero, change from something ordinary into something extraordinary. And that's another key component Marvel considers important in being a hero: change. The progression, whether slow and subtle or fast and extreme, from someone defined by his or her flaws and mistakes into someone worth following. Someone who can not only inspire others, but also believe in himself. And perhaps most importantly, someone willing to sacrifice themselves, but unwilling to sacrifice their humanity. Sometimes though, a character's change is mostly physical, as is the case with Captain America and the Super Soldier Serum, but many times this change is mental, as seen in the previously mentioned Iron Man, as well as Thor's journey of identity and humility in his first film. Of course, a defining trait of superheroes is their ability to accomplish the seemingly or literally impossible. Destroying planets, walking through walls, and reading people's minds all draw people in for their awesomeness and incredibility, but a convincing and compelling hero's journey consists of far more than their powers. Seeing them discover these uncanny abilities and contemplate how and whether or not to use them, watching their personalities and beliefs either change or amplify, is also worth discussing and analyzing. The MCU has many characters, heroes especially, who go through some sort of change. One example of a character who had to experience more of the world and other people in order to learn more about themselves and heroism as a whole is Thor. Thor had a particularly dynamic arc in his first film, going from an arrogant, self-centered warrior to someone worthy of his title as Thor. To keep things a little more current though, another great example in the MCU of a character who had to learn more about the world in order to grow into an admirable hero, rather than only considering those closest to him, is Black Panther. In his first few appearances, even through much of his solo film, T'Challa held Wakanda in such high regard that he chose to keep it almost completely disconnected from the rest of the world, effectively abandoning nearly all of humanity. It took the experiences of his own cousin, a person deeply interwoven into an awful family tragedy, to convince T'Challa of the problems with his own methods. However, T'Challa was capable of change, and even though he strongly opposed what Killmonger desired, he still closely examined his own life and purpose as the king of Wakanda, and decided that it was his duty to protect all people, not just those in Wakanda. Through Black Panther, Marvel not only shows that it's important to consider even the problems of those we don't know, like how T'Challa eventually begins offering aid even to people outside of Wakanda, but also that heroes can change and grow as people.
Wakanda will no longer watch from the shadows. We cannot. We must not. We must find a way to look after one another as if we were one single tribe.
Their ideas about right and wrong develop from their experiences as they learn more about the world and the people in it. But heroes aren't all the same either. Each hero is unique and brings something different to the table.
I'm trying to keep you from tearing the Avengers apart.
You did that when you signed.
Marvel has presented an incredible number of diverse heroes. From the royalty and stealth of Black Panther to the youth and wit of Peter Parker, from a
genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist,
and Tony Stark to the espionage and mystery of Black Widow, the MCU has many different heroes spanning and using a wide range of different backgrounds, ideologies, techniques, designs, and personalities, and with this far-reaching scope of characters, the MCU suggests that nearly anyone can become a hero because of its immense diversity. In the MCU, however, diversity doesn't simply mean groups that have members of different races and genders, but it also means that their heroes operate in unique ways, making use of various techniques and skill sets, and come from different backgrounds with distinct, sometimes clashing ideologies that provide different perspectives and help solve problems they otherwise may not have been able to solve. Many of the MCU's films, and especially the MCU as a whole, exemplify this kind of diversity, which not only helps the audience more fully immerse themselves into the story by creating realistic environments populated with understandable characters, but also allows us to personally connect with these characters as we gravitate towards the heroes we understand and agree with before considering those we disagree with. Many times in the MCU, even when heroes initially argue or downright fight one another about something, they eventually learn to put aside their differences and work together. Because as a hero, it's important to realize that your opinions and methods may not be the most advantageous approach, and trying to forcibly enact them onto everyone else can make things even more damaging than what you were hoping to prevent. In addition, with such a diverse cast of characters presenting and acting out these different ideas, we get contrasting points of view on divisive topics, allowing us to contemplate the positions ourselves and adding to the film's thematic resonance. For example, in Captain America: Civil War, Iron Man and Captain America have quite clashing perspectives about the Sokovia Accords. While Iron Man, forever chained by a direct confrontation with guilt, believes that the Avengers should register with the United Nations, Captain America holds the completely opposing view. As a result of his experiences throughout the previous films, he no longer trusts that the government can make the right decisions. He believes it is far too easily corrupted and that the Avengers would operate better unimpeded by government intervention.
But it's run by people with agendas, and agendas change.
That's good.
We may not be perfect, but the safest hands are still our own.
Both Iron Man and Cap's backgrounds led them to their respective positions and convincingly created a dynamic where neither one would easily forfeit their stance. Both of these characters had developed firmly into their opposing yet equally understandable positions, which showcases just one example of the MCU's wide, diverse range of heroes and the interesting but important interactions that come with them. While the Marvel Cinematic Universe may initially seem straightforward, unambiguous, and lacking any significant depth as just a fun, meaningless, shallow series of movies, it actually has far more complexity than most people think, especially in its interesting portrayals of heroes. The MCU shows that heroes don't always act completely honorably. As flawed people, they still sometimes fall prey to their own selfishness and emotions, even when they mean well. Many times, heroes can make the wrong decisions and fail when people count on them the most. But even though many heroes go through painful experiences to become honorable and empathetic to the turmoil of others, they can use their individual backgrounds and ideologies and find a way to overcome what seemed impossible. Even when they seem beaten and unable to continue, they persevere. Marvel reminds us that even when we think we can't take any more, a hero never quits and never abandons his humanity. In addition to the numerous other qualities that make someone a hero, Marvel also shows us, perhaps most importantly, that a hero fights until he has nothing left. Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Hulk, Black Widow, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Black Panther, and the rest of Marvel's heroes exemplify what truly makes someone heroic. Thanks for watching.